What up, Raffalitos? Welcome back to my channel. We are back on the east bank of Demerara. That's East Bank Public Road looking north towards Georgetown. And this is the East Bank Public Road looking south towards the airport. So what's happening? They closed this East Bank Public Road near Peters Hall. Morning. They closed the East Bank Public Road near Peters Hall over the weekend to do some work on the bridge. And because I knew they were going to do that, last week on Friday, I did a video update on the bridge. And today I want to see what they actually accomplished over the weekend. So I'm back here on the East Bank Tuesday. This is Tuesday, the 29th of July, to see how far they've come. I'm going to show you what has happened because I expected them to close all the gaps. Spoiler alert, they did not. So I don't know what they accomplished over the weekend, but we're going to find out in this video. So let's go. So guys, we're back here on this bridge. This is actually Echoes. We're at Echoes on the East Bank of the road. It's about 6:40, about 20 minutes to 7. Last time we were here, there was fog. So that's the East Bank Public Road looking towards Georgetown. Like I said, last time we were here, there was fog. It's about 20 minutes to 7. And we couldn't see the bridge through the fog, but this time, the bridge is quite visible. So what do we see? Look at that, there's still a gap. So they did not close the gap, but they seem to have reached the last pillar between the high span section and the ramp. So that's the ramp section of the bridge coming from the east, from Heroes Highway, and that's the point at which the ramp connects to the high span section. That's the point at which the ramp connects to the high span section, and it has not yet been closed. So today is Tuesday the 29th of July, and that ramp isn't closed. That ramp isn't connected. Let's see what's happened at the other end of that high span section. So it seems as if they're almost touching. So the two high span sections are almost touching. They've almost reached the point where they are going to be connected, but they are not yet connected. And what's happening at the other end, that end of the high span section connects to the west coast stretch of bridge, and that part of the bridge has not yet been connected. So I really don't know what they accomplished over the weekend, but as you can see, there's still cranes at the top of the pillars. That's the second pair of pillars at the high span section, and this is the first set of pillars at the high span section. There are still cranes there. The cranes are still up. And this is what is happening on the East Bank Public Road heading towards the airport, Timeri Airport. Now let's take a closer look. We're going to go closer to the bridge to see what is happening, what did they manage to accomplish, and where is the construction, what progress they've made in the construction. So here we are at Echoes. We're going to go all the way to Peters Hall, which is about half a mile away from here. We're going to take a look at it again from the overpass, that is the pedestrian overpass at Peters Hall. And then we're going to get right up onto the bridge to see if we can spot the difference between the way it was on Friday and before they closed the bridge, before they closed the road to today. This is the overpass, the pedestrian overpass that we were on. Like I said, each one of them has lifts, but the lifts don't work. So let's head over to the bridge, the new Demerara River Bridge, and see what did they accomplish after closing the road for 48 hours last weekend. Let's go. We're at Baggettstown, guys. This is the intersection, the famous intersection. Just left Eccles. That's the sign saying you're entering Eccles. And we're standing at the road from Baggettstown to the Eccles interchange. Right, so that's the road from Baggettstown to Eccles interchange. We've looked at this road in the past, even before it was open. Problems, of course, with the absence of turning lanes and intersections without traffic lights and so on. Standing problems that are quite common now with the new construction of these roads. But we're still heading towards the bridge, that is East Bank Public Road, looking back where we've come from since we came down off of the pedestrian overpass at Eccles. And straight ahead of us now is the bridge. So you can see that's the overpass, that is the bridge overpass at Peters Hall and Providence. And before that, that's the pedestrian overpass at Peters Hall. We're going to go onto that overpass and take a closer look at the bridge before we pass under the bridge. And so that's why we're heading in this direction. But they had closed this public road over the weekend from Saturday morning to Monday morning, and I presume that they had done so to join the sections of the bridge that are still separate, disconnected. However, what we've seen so far is that they haven't joined those sections of the bridge, so we're going to find out what actually happened over the weekend. But more importantly, last time we were here, there was a thick fog, a dense fog covering the bridge, hiding the bridge, and that pointed out some new hazards, some new challenges that have to be addressed. Some people don't seem to understand the seriousness of that hazard, that challenge. And the people telling me, well, there's fog elsewhere, and people in other countries deal with fog, and all they have to do is to turn on the lights. The problem, of course, is that fog is not like any other hazard. It's actually blinding. Turning on the lights doesn't make a difference. You need fog lights, which are usually positioned very close to the road, that is at the bottom of your front bumper and at the rear, a red fog light in the rear. And you have to make sure that these are working. In a country like Guyana that doesn't deal with fog, it is quite possible that the majority of cars on the road don't have working fog lights. And beyond that, people don't know how to use the fog lights. Most people probably don't know where the switch is to turn on their fog lights, or when to use the fog lights, or how to use it. So these are the issues that have to be faced. That is the bridge. Last time we were here, I tried to show you from this location that the bridge is normally visible. Here you can see a rainbow. That's new. It's still a rainy season for some reason. It's the end of July and it's still raining every day, regularly. Which is what happened last year, actually. One of the reasons why I didn't film a lot of videos during the middle of the year last year, I realized, is that I was just simply not filming during the rainy period. And it would rain for 2 weeks every year, every month. And that meant that I didn't capture 2 weeks every month. But here it is. That's the That's the gap between the high span section and the ramp as seen from Peters Hall. And the last time we were here, I tried to show you this particular view and we couldn't see it because the fog was so dense. This tells you how dense that fog was, because if you compare this video today and the video from Friday, you will see that from this location, nothing was visible. But as you can see here, standing at the intersection where we are, that is this intersection of Peters Hall Public Road and the entrance to the Demerara Harbor Bridge. You can see the bridge is clearly visible. But we couldn't see this the last time we were here. Right, we couldn't see that. This is 7, well, it's about 10 minutes to 7 on Tuesday morning. This is the old Demerara Harbor Bridge. Traffic coming towards us is crossing from the west bank to the east bank towards Georgetown. We're going to climb this pedestrian overpass. We're going to climb this pedestrian overpass and see what we can see from high up. Like I said, somebody was asking about these lifts. This is what is happening. Apparently, the glass is broken. There's moss on the ground, which means that it's leaking. So that's what's happening with our lovely infrastructure. I think these are built sometime during the pandemic. These overpasses were built about 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago during the pandemic. And they're already disintegrating, falling apart. That's a problem with the culture of the society, is that we don't have a culture of maintenance. Spend all this money to build stuff, but there's no budget to maintain it and keep it working. Morning. So here from the top of the overpass, that is the East Bank Public Road looking north towards Georgetown. Right, that's the East Bank Public Road looking north towards Georgetown. And of course that's the traffic from the old bridge. But this is what we're here to see. This is what the bridge looks like. From the overpass here at Peters Hall. There you can see the gap between the high span section. Right, that's the gap between the high span section and the ramp. And of course, continues the high span section. That is, the two high span sections are almost ready to be joined, but they're not quite there yet. And this is what the rest of that the ramp section looks like. All right, so that's the ramp. Now the question is, what did they do over the weekend? What did they do over the weekend? It's not visible. I can't guess what changed. What I do know is the last time we were here on Friday, we couldn't see very much of anything through the fog. We certainly couldn't see the high span section, and we couldn't see that gap, and we couldn't see what else had not been completed. So it's difficult for me to say what they've achieved. This traffic coming towards me is heading to Georgetown. Let's go to this other end of the overpass. See if we can take a look at the high span section. So this is what you can see This is what you can see. So that's what you can see from this end of the pedestrian overpass, and of course that's the traffic heading towards the West Bank across the old Demerara River Bridge. Still what they do, see there's a traffic policeman on a motorcycle riding on the wrong side of the road. So what they do on weekday mornings is they open the southbound lanes to one lane of traffic towards the north. So that's how they get 3 lanes of traffic. Right, this is how they deal with traffic congestion currently. If you notice, there's traffic in both directions on the left-hand side of the public road and in one direction on the right-hand side. And so what they've been doing for the last 5 years or so is they have been opening the northbound lanes to the southbound lanes to northbound traffic in the mornings. And that seems to continue even though the Heroes Highway bypass, East Bank bypass, has been opened. It has not reduced the traffic here on the East Bank. But we're going to deal with that issue in the future. For now, we're trying to figure out what did they do over the weekend to this bridge, because I don't know guys, but for me it seems as if the situation is exactly the same as it was last weekend when we were here. That's what you can see of the bridge over the tops of the roofs of the buildings here. And we're heading towards the bridge. Now going to go under it. The other thing that has to be clarified is that, morning, the reason for making these videos is to keep Guyanese who live abroad up to date on some of the progress that is being made here in Guyana. And the fact that I'm criticizing the quality of the work is not political. This has nothing to do with politics. It has to do with mediocrity. The fact that even in the 21st morning, what's happening there? You got the fruit guys out here. Yeah, but it has to do with mediocrity and incompetence and corruption that has become endemic in the society, regardless of which political party is in power. And instead of becoming defensive, why don't you try to examine the points I'm making and see if you can understand where I'm coming from. The problem is that most people who are watching this through a political lens are completely blind to the details, to the fact that what appears to be progress is basically a very thin veneer, thin facade, an appearance of progress if the quality is not there. We're not trying to pretend to make progress. What we're actually trying to do is to catch up, not to the first world, not to America and Canada, because America and Canada has fallen behind. So both the US and Canada are way behind infrastructure in China. Those of you who are not aware of that have your head stuck in the sand, because it's everywhere on the internet. Infrastructure, I have lived in Singapore, This is 10, 15 years ago. I left New York in 2011, moved to Singapore. And when I arrived in Singapore, Singapore was about 10 years, 10 to 15 years ahead of New York. And that was 15 years ago. They were still opening new uh, subway lines in 2011, 2012. I think they opened Harper Villa, the line to Harper Villa on the West Coast. And I was living on the West Coast of Singapore, so I saw some of this development. I used to take the train to Clementi, or I used to take the bus to Clementi in the mornings and then take the train to Bovista, right? And in fact, I stayed for the first month that I lived in Singapore. I stayed just off of Orchard Road. So I'm very, very familiar with the infrastructure of Singapore, and it was way ahead of New York in 2011. So those of you who think this is about catching up to New York and catching up to Toronto, it's not about catching up to New York and Toronto, because New York and Toronto are way behind Asia. This is about bringing Guyana in line on par with what is best practices in infrastructure around the world, and that for now is in Asia. It's not in Europe. It's not in Europe. It's not in North America. Here we are, about to pass under the bridge. This is what the bridge looks like on a Thursday morning. We're trying to see what actually happened. What did they do over the weekend? Tell me something. When they closed the road this weekend, what did they do? What happened last weekend when they closed the road? What did they do?
They worked up here.
Okay. Thanks. So apparently a lot of the work that what was done over the weekend is not visible. It's not visible from the ground. They were working on the deck, apparently the deck of the road, of the bridge, and we can't see that from down below. I guess now's the time for us to get that drone, put the drone up so we can see. But this is what we can see from below the bridge here at Peters Hall, crossing into Providence. As you can see, the two sections, the ramp section and the high span section, are still disconnected. So we know that is not what was done over the weekend. However, apparently, some of the work that was done over the weekend was on the deck. All right, this is what I just got from asking one of the workers here. Now this is looking east towards Key Roads Highway, looking under the ramp of the bridge. The ramp of the bridge is one of the longest ramps in this hemisphere. It's at least half a mile long. As you can see now, the work on the deck might have been progressed over the weekend, but the connection of the bridge still remains. So at the end of July, the bridge is still not fully connected, and I've heard that, see, this is what that's what the bridge is supposed to look like when it's completed, based on this poster here at Providence. Right, that is the Ramada Hotel and Princess Casino. Yes, guys. So we've now heard that the Vice President has said that he is no longer expecting the bridge to be completed when they promised it would in September, by September 1st. They are pushing back the completion date. So we don't know when this bridge will be completed, but we do know that at the end of July 2025, this month, the bridge has not been completed. And as you can see, the ramp section, the connection between the ramp, right, that's the ramp section at the end of the ramp, and the high span section, that connection still is still open. In fact, several of these gaps still exist. But this is a situation, guys, here at Providence on the East Bank Public Road. It does look massive, however, it does look as impressive as usual. And now that you can see the curvature, right, you can see the curve of the bridge, it does look like an engineering marvel. I expect once they've put the lights up and they've completed it to turn those lights on at night, you'll be able to see a major monument, right? What will be a major monument in this neck of the woods. And we're looking forward to seeing that in future. But for now, this is what is happening here at Peters Hall on a Tuesday morning in July in Guyana. If you want to see more content like this, click like and subscribe. Share this video with friends and family around the world. In the comments below, tell me what you think was accomplished over the weekend, because it's not visible from here, from where I am. However, it could be that they were putting up these barriers, because what I can see now from here, from this standpoint, right, what I can see is some rails. These are like steel, maybe cast iron rails. Those are new. So from the Providence side of the bridge, I can see some new cast iron rails have been added to the ramp of the bridge up to that point, so up to a point. And so I can imagine those rails were installed over the weekend, and they need to close the roads for safety, because if they're working at the edge, of the bridge, that's on the sides of the bridge, then you don't want those rails tumbling off onto traffic below. And I guess that explains why they closed the bridge, so that they can install those rails. But that's it, guys. Share this video with friends and family around the world. Let people know what's happening in the fastest growing country, the fastest growing economy in the world, Guyana. That's Red Road, looking east towards Heroes Highway. And this is our last look back at the bridge from Red Road. That's what we can see. As you can see, there's still a gap, still working on it. But I guess what they will be putting on is, these rails. And it seems to me